إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you are doing well. Jazakallah for joining me on an extra special Ramadan episode of the Revelation podcast. And if you are new, welcome. I am your host, Masiha, and it is wonderful of you to join. The purpose of these podcasts are to present relatable problems and to actively find a solution for them. I know what your question is. Ramadan has nearly come to an end, but how can I continue to be the best even after the month has ended? I felt motivated to do good deeds. Salah and fasting didn't feel like a chore. But how can I apply this all year round? Or maybe you didn't feel this way. Maybe you didn't feel as motivated as you wanted. But now you want the end of this month to be a fresh start in your journey to be a better Muslim. It is an honor to welcome back Sister Asmaa Mahmood to help navigate through these topics. I thoroughly enjoyed our previous episode where we spoke about taking ownership in our religion, and I'm equally excited to dive into this topic. If you have missed our previous episode, I highly recommend giving that a listen. Without any further ado, our guest for this episode, Sister Asmaa Mahmood. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Welcome back to the podcast.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on again. And honestly, even I really enjoyed the previous podcast. That's probably why I'm here again. So yeah, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. How has your Ramadan been?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Productive, you know.
Alhamdulillah. Now, normally we do start with a quick fire review round, but I think we should just jump right into the questions. So obviously our focus is on how to keep the motivation alive even after Ramadan. But my question to you is, why is it that during Ramadan we kind of gravitate towards doing good? Probably you can even say more than any other time during the year.
It's fine. So in my head I've got a few reasons for that. Firstly, as we know from the hadith, that the shayateen are locked up. So shayateen are like the devils, and like devils come in different forms, right? So just evil in general, like shaitan, iblis as we know him, and then as well as all of his army and other negative influences are reduced in Ramadan. So that's what makes it easier for us to go towards good deeds. As well as that, there's this whole, not just communal vibe, but almost like a global vibe. Ramadan is a global month of fasting. So around the world, like during the 24 hours that we have, even if we're eating at that time, there's always somebody who's fasting or somebody who's like, in the middle of their fast. So because everybody's on board, then that makes it easier to do good deeds. And just the importance that Allah has given to the month of Ramadan in the Quran, in the Hadith as well, because those people who came before us, the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ himself, obviously, they gave Ramadan a lot of importance, and they used to do a lot of good deeds. So because we follow the example, naturally we're going to do a lot of good deeds in Ramadan as well.
Following on from that, you can say it's kind of impossible for everyone to be 100% motivated every single day in Ramadan. What would your advice be then? Obviously, we are ending the month, but you can apply this maybe to the last few days that we have left, or just as a practical advice throughout the year. How do we deal with demotivation?
So firstly, I like to start by saying demotivation or not being motivated is completely normal. I was actually talking to my friend the other day, and she said something really beautiful. She said that the human being is not a tool, or it's not an instrument, right? Because unlike, or a robot, let's just say, right? Because if we're a robot, we can do everything consistently every single day, right? But human beings aren't like that. We go through a variety of phases, we go through a variety of circumstances, which definitely affects our motivation and our work ethic, right? So that being said, I'd also say that I don't think trying to be motivated all the time is the goal as well, because that's not feasible. And there's another quote that I actually like, which goes along the lines of, you need motivation to get yourself started and discipline to make yourself continue. So as long as whatever you're doing, you're passionate about, right, and you start off with like this real zeal, then during those days where you're not motivated, you can't just try to make yourself motivated or feel bad for not being as passionate, because that's normal. But you have to rely on your discipline and your consistency and just sort of make yourself do it. And obviously this sounds like, I don't know, very idealistic, but even on the days that you're not feeling like you want to do everything that you set out to do, then that's okay as well. I would say set yourself a bare minimum. And in Ramadan, it's actually easier for us to do good deeds because of all the things I mentioned before. So you have that global vibe, you have that whole emphasis on Ramadan. So even your mindset is different during Ramadan. It's like, you know what, even if during the rest of the months I'm doing certain things, in Ramadan I'm going to give them up. And you actually see this even amongst like non-practicing or non-religious people, right? Who are like, I don't know, they'll have some bad habits, but when Ramadan's coming around, they really make a conscious effort to stop. So yeah, anyway, coming back to the point, in terms of motivation, I'd say, yeah, you don't have to rely on motivation all the time. You should rely more on discipline, but at the same time, you should be passionate about doing what you want to do. So in terms of good deeds, Allah has given us a wide array of good deeds that we can do, which I find so interesting. Like, there's so many ways in which we can worship Allah. Like, to be honest, anything we do can essentially become worship. You just have to give it the right intention. So that's why choose carefully, like choose your good deeds carefully, based on your passion, based on things that you're good at, based on things you like doing and worship you actually enjoy. And that will definitely make it easier for you on the days you don't feel motivated.
That's really true. And I think even for people that don't, you're thinking, oh, I haven't done anything like great today. I always think, well, if you've stayed away from evil, that's also something that you should, look at and say, well, at least I didn't do that. So it's that balance that we should always have, in terms of not always thinking, oh, well, I need to always be doing this. And some days you're going to have a setback, and that's completely fine. So now the big question, knowing all of this, how can we take this and apply it outside of Ramadan? Because like you said, in Ramadan, the shayateen are locked up, and, it is a time where it's the atmosphere of Ramadan. Now, outside of Ramadan, how can I still carry on being a really good Muslim?
That's kind of tricky, to be honest. I do feel like if things are done properly, I feel like we peak at Ramadan or during Ramadan, right? Because of the circumstances and the environment. But I still do think it's definitely possible to be a good Muslim outside of Ramadan. And I think it just comes back to habits. So whatever worship you did during Ramadan, obviously they were at a much higher degree than the other normal months. But I do feel like part of them should be continued on after Ramadan. So for example, like a simple example, just say if you were reciting a juz of Quran every single day, or just say 2 juz, for example, then during the normal days, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to revise 2 juz, because maybe that's not realistic. But don't just let go of that habit completely. Just say, okay, fine, I'll recite a quarter of a juz, I'll recite 5 pages, or I'll listen to, I don't know, a half an hour lecture on the Quran every day or something. So I think it's more about just building good habits,
Definitely. And I think it's really amazing, because I remember someone speaking about just lockdown in general, and how in lockdown, because all the distractions are not there. I mean, in our first lockdown, we were kind of proper at home. You make time for the good, and everything else that you didn't make time for, those were always the things that were never meant to be, kind of thing. So you just take the good and just apply that, and take it slow. And then there's also that famous quote, which is, run, and when you can't run, then jog, and if you can't jog, then walk, and if you can't walk, then pause. But always be moving towards doing good. That's incredible. Jazakallah khairan once again for accepting the invitation to come back. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this Ramadan of yours and allow you to be from the people of the Quran, and you are always welcome back. I pray the rest of your Quran, that your hifz journey goes really well.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, and Jazakallah khairan for your time as well. And may Allah accept all of the efforts that you guys are putting into these podcasts, and everything that goes on behind the scenes, because I know that it's not just whatever you deliver. I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. So may Allah reward you immensely, and again, may Allah accept my Ramadan, your Ramadan, and everybody's Ramadan.
Ameen. Jazakallah khairan. Really means a lot. Which brings us to the end. I hope you feel inspired and enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. Be sure to check out our previous episodes, as well as like, subscribe, and share. Let us know in the comment section below what you thought of the episode and what you hope to see more of in the future podcast. I pray you have a joyous Eid full of food, laughter, and happiness. Jazakallah for listening. Until next time.